room, I think.
There we are. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the industry panel. I'm very excited about this panel. We have a very interesting set of guests who will share with us their experiences with technical debt on the ground. Just to introduce the panel, my name is Carolyn Seaman. I'm the program co-chair for TechDebt 2021. I'm very pleased to be moderating this panel. I want to thank our panelists in advance. I'll ask them to introduce themselves in just a minute, but just to let you know that the very broad topic of the panel that I gave the panelists is their industry experience with technical debt management, and I have more specific questions in a bit. But before we do that, I would like to ask each of the panelists to introduce yourselves, give us your name, where you work, the role that you have there, and we'll start with Rodrigo, please.
Okay, hello, thank you for the invitation. I'm Rodrigo, I'm associate professor from the Federal University of Paraíba here in Brazil. I'm also a PhD student from Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte in Brazil. I've been researching technical debt in cooperation with industry for the last 4 years, and before that I run collaborations related to business process management and IT service management. So I'm very glad to be here.
Thank you. Robert, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I am Robert Lagerstedt. I work at Bosch, the Bosch R&D site in Sweden, where I'm responsible for the architecture team. I have been working in different companies with technical debt management, mainly as an architect and also in different academia collaboration network. I'm also currently now at Bosch part of a global team that defining our overall technical debt management, trying to help out all the projects around this. And I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you. Florian, could you go next?
My name is Florian. I'm managing partner of CKSE. CKSE is a company based in Germany, 45 people that deal exclusively with technical debt. We build an analysis tool and support our customers in managing technical debt, although we call it software quality and not technical debt. That's the other side of the coin. And we do that across many different domains, from automotive to financial, pretty much across all industries and across all technologies.
Thank you. Ramses?
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ramses Gallegos, sitting in Barcelona, Spain. I'm International Chief Technology Officer with CyberRes, a micro-focused line of business. And of course, we as a vendor, when it comes to application security and remote testing and dynamic testing, and of course, getting rid of tech debt, of technical debt, that's instrumental for us, because it's instrumental for our partners and our customers and the customers we serve. So it's an honor to be in this panel and looking forward to the insights of my peer colleagues. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Jan?
You can hear me, right? Yes. Great. My name is Jan Bosch, software engineer at Chalmers. Have worked on technical debt for the last decade or so, together with people like Antonio Martini, who many of you know very well. Therese Besker, who is one of my PhD students who graduated earlier, actually last year, with Carolyn as the opponent. So that was a fun experience. In addition to that, I have worked in Silicon Valley and at Nokia in the time that it was good to get to work, fun to work for Nokia. And currently, I also work as an angel investor, board member, and in a number of other roles in software-intensive companies, where the topic comes up on a regular basis, I must admit.
Thank you. All right, so we'll get started. I have a set of questions that I'm interested in asking. I will also keep an eye on the chat, so if you have a burning question or a follow-up to something that somebody said, feel free to put it in the chat, and I'll try to move back and forth. I've asked the panelists to physically raise their hands when they want to speak. If we were all together, we could all talk over each other. It could be very dynamic, but that just doesn't work so well online. So we'll be a little more regimented today and actually raise your hands. We'll pretend we're back in kindergarten. Sorry about that. But let's go ahead and get started. So my first question is, what types of technical debt are causing you the most pain, or do you see causing the most pain in industry settings? Who would like to go first?
Can you start?
Ramses.
Yeah, well, of the different types of technical debt, to my eyes, in our world, one is deliberate technical debt and accidental technical debt. Of course, if it's deliberate and in my line of business, which is cybersecurity and resiliency, I mean, if it's deliberate, you not only have a problem of the technical debt itself, but then you have another problem because someone has planted something or he or she wanted to do no good. So deliberate is certainly a problem, but a bigger problem than accidental technical debt. However, if it's accidental, that means, and certainly this panel will address that today, I mean, if it's accidental means that the processes, procedures, what we call the white book on application security and coding and testing, and I mean, the process and procedures are not robust enough. And as a consequence, then you are having that debt that is happening, and it is coming for years, for ages, happening, and sometimes we can not get rid of it. So to my eyes, deliberate and accidental. If it's accidental, that's a minor issue, but it's not minor because then we are lacking governance, But if it's deliberate, then you are lacking the controls that allow for that to happen, So I want to hear the rest of my colleagues, but both deliberate and accidental, I think that both deserve a conversation, and they deserve governance and some oversight into that. So that, to my eyes and in my world, those are coming strong. Back to you. Yep.
Thank you. Jan, go ahead.
Sometimes hard to find the unmute button. So I was thinking a bit about your question, Carolyn, and I wanted to follow up a little bit on where Ramses was going with his deliberate technical debt. What I see is the hardest form of technical debt is where the people believe that they are doing the right thing, implementing the business strategy, taking the wrong technical approaches. And one typical example that I ran into with one of the companies that I'm on is where the people in the company interpreted being customer-centric as responding to every whim and request of the customer by deep customization in the code, causing an enormous amount of complexity and hassle and difficulty to test and quality issues in the code, because that was their interpretation of what being customer-centric or being customer-focused meant. And that is then often something that is so deep in the culture of the company and the way that they interpret the business strategy, that changing that is extremely painful, because you then actually have to unwind a whole bunch of beliefs and interpretations of, for instance, what the business is about and what the business strategy is about. That makes it very difficult to address the technical debt. You can then still go and clean up the mess, so have architecture refactorings in place, but the culture of the company will just pile on additional technical debt on a continuous basis. And I think that is, for me, the hardest type of technical debt that I've run into.
Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to continue on the same track, actually. I think we have quite good control if we talk about the code debt. We have a lot of good tooling there. The infrastructure debt, I also think we have quite good understanding of. We can measure it, we can put KPIs on it. When it comes to the architecture debt, this debt timeline, as you probably all are aware of, is really tricky, because sometimes you should not fix the debt and sometimes you should fix the debt if you want to have the benefit. I mean, if we take an architecture debt example, if you want to put an abstraction layer onto your database, you have a system with a database, will you put an abstraction layer on top of this database or access the database directly? And if you will never have another database in your system, only one, then adding an abstraction layer is a technical debt. But if you have variants with different databases, then not having an abstraction layer is a technical debt. And this is really hard to, I would say, really painful to try to both understand, both have the crystal ball to look at the future, as well as you have to continuously reevaluate, because maybe you thought you were only having one database and then all of a sudden you get another customer in the future, and then you get this debt. And then you can talk about, should I have added the abstraction layer before, or now I'm in the mess and now I have to refactor all the dependencies to the database.
Go ahead.
Okay, sorry, Florian. Okay. Yes, going on the line of Jan Bosch, I think that the key word here is the pain. I have seen situations where a team lives with architecture debt for years, you see, but not causing direct pain. But being affected by a problem with replicated CSS on a white label product, for example, you see, delaying a meeting with a customer and losing a business opportunity. So code debts, test debts, architecture debts, I think that the pain is most directly related to where they live, where they are living in, what the how can I say, how the business is being affected by them, you see. For example, I had the opportunity to observe some teams running planning pokers, you see, on a sprint planning, for example, and more than one time, or most often, when they are arguing about the how can you say, the divergences, yeah? When someone says, oh, it's easy to do and this is hard to do, then behind the hard to do often there is a technical debt there, you see. So we can see two types of pains here, that acute pains which we can feel in the hard way, like instant, or for example, and we have the chronic pain that are on the day-to-day, you say, routine of the team, pushing, creating friction, you see. So it really depends on where it is and what type of pain it is creating, you see. So.
Go ahead.
I think that the real pain comes from the combination of different types of technical debt. So what I have a lot to do with in the last couple of months is companies migrating to some kind of cloud setup from an existing system. And when you then encounter a situation where you do not only have a monolithic architecture, but you have like each and every class is huge. You don't have comments and you don't have an automated test setup. That combination makes it a real pain. You can deal with the individual problems sooner, better, or not, but the combination makes it the real pain. That's my experience.
Else have any follow-ups or other thoughts on this question about the pain? All right. If not, we'll go on to a similar but slightly different question. What aspects of technical debt management are the most difficult? What is it about managing technical debt that's hardest? Jan, go ahead.
Yeah, so these panels are much more fun as we all disagree with each other, but we don't disagree with each other. So that is, I think, the challenge. Where I feel I want to follow up on something that Robert mentioned, which is the architecture technical debt timeline, or maybe it was Rodrigo who mentioned it. But what I just came out of a board meeting with one of the companies that I'm on the board of, and we have had a chunk of functionality that was stuck in a very old piece of monolithic code that has served us perfectly fine, had a lot of technical debt, but it has served us perfectly fine up to this point. And now we are reaching a point where we are entering a state where we are going to buy, as it looks now, a number of smaller companies. And suddenly the functionality that was stuck in this monolith doesn't work anymore for us. So now suddenly we have to go and invest into undoing the technical debt, quote unquote, of this chunk of functionality that is stuck in this monolithic piece of software. So for me, the hard part of the management is, I think Robert was alluding to this as well, you will always have technical debt in your system, but figuring out what the right time is to actually start to address it and when to just let it be is, I think, one of the hardest things to investigate. And for those of you that know Antonio, we also looked into different classes of technical debt where Antonio looked into contagious technical debt versus non-contagious technical debt. But I think that in general, just figuring out when to address a particular technical debt item is, for me, the hardest part of the management question.
And go ahead.
I think you're hitting on an important aspect there, and this is also part of the reason why I'm personally not so much of a fan of the use of the term technical debt, because I think the problem here is at a specific point in time, you can't even tell if it's technical debt or not, because you need to look into the future to be able to tell that. What Robert said about the abstraction layer, there's no point in building an abstraction layer if you don't need it. Other examples are the shiny new JavaScript framework that you're using today. It may sound like a great idea today. It's a technical debt of the future. Maybe, maybe not. And for many of these things, it's just from a point in time, it's hard to tell if this is technical debt or not. It only turns out later on once you have a better understanding of your actual use case of the system. And I think that's the hard part.
Yeah, I must agree and disagree in the same point, because, there is that point where the practitioner must decide to postpone something due to a pressure, isn't it? We are finishing a sprint, and I don't have new things came along during the unplanned things came along, incidents, bugs, etc. And we don't have time to fill all the things that we expected to. Then we need to deliberately decide if we must or not postpone something. You see, this decision isn't obvious. You see, I'm following two companies creating a technical debt, and this aspect must be the maturity and the size of the company also must be taken in account. I'm following two medium-sized companies. One is a big company, and other is medium-sized, and there are that moment that the practitioner doesn't know if they should postpone or not something, you see, and an architect or a team leader must be together to make that decision. But yes, we have a lot of well, I even don't know if we can say that this is a technical debt if we don't know the future. You see, Florian. Maybe that's why you don't like the name, because systems evolve during time, and do not be prepared for the next feature, the unpredictable feature in 2 months. It's completely normal. The problem is that when that feature comes in, then we can't handle it, and then it becomes a debt. You see, the unprediction here, I think that maybe, well, it's like you getting some money, and do not know if you have to get it back in the future. Well, that's just a point.
Yeah, but if I may, go ahead. No, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Robert.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you have already touched. I also agree that the biggest problem, I think, is this timing, because it takes this continuous re-evaluation. So when we evaluate defects, we do it once and we have quite a good understanding, and we know how much impact, business impact, this defect will have, and it does not change that much, but a debt change a lot. There is a combination with debt, so there is another challenge with technical debt that combines and make this even harder, and that is that the technical debt usually is hidden. So it also have the challenge to visualize this cost. So usually it is the expert maybe that knows, and they have to be able to discuss, be able to communicate this in a good way. So the reason that it's hidden also adds to the difficulty compared to defects and features.
Go ahead, Ramses, and then after you, there's an interesting in the chat that I want to go
Absolutely.
to.
Actually, I'm going to touch on that at the end of my answer, because one of the problems managing technical debt is coherence, consistency, and then integrity. I was mentioning before, and there was an Alexander mentioned in the chat that accidental technical debt, because I mentioned it. I mean, if we have it or not. To my eyes, I mean, different minor issues on technical debt in aggregated fashion, when they are here and there are minor issues in here and there, but in aggregated fashion, they are not minor anymore. They become not accidental or minor issues, but they come sometimes even deliberate issue, because there's a lack of governance, as I was saying before, and consistency and coherent, and that white book or blue book, as you want to call it, on how we develop things here in the house, or not only in the house, but even our outsourced parties. I mean, if they follow the right rules, where do you store credentials? Where do you stock the logs? So back and so forth. Actually, Juan Garbajosa is saying in the chat that the growing concerns on security, and that drives me into the aspects of appetite for risk or risk appetite. I mean, we need, I mean, companies are, because of, and this is very important, by the way, because of time to market, or time to value, whatever you want to call it. But in my dictionary, that's called pressure, because we want to be first and we want to be, come on, let it out. I mean, with this functionality, boom, 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 then we forget, and I say it with a sad face, we forget to take care of instrumental questions. And then as a consequence, it's like a flow of things, as a consequence, because of the pressure of time to market and time to value, then the coding is not that robust or not solid, or the testing has not been done properly on every platform, every device, every possible cloud, And as a consequence, we have that accidental technical debt that in aggregated fashion is not that accidental anymore. And again, that tells me a story of lack of oversight, of lack of governance. So I think that's one of the main problems, when the pressure comes and, you release the version and then we'll see what happens. And then I say that to my customers and my clients, and really, I mean, are you serious? I mean, am I hearing on board of directors meetings and developer meetings, and I mean, let it out and then we'll see. Then we'll see? Oh boy, oh yeah, then we'll see. Back to you. All right.
Go ahead.
Actually, I disagree here to a certain point. My feeling is that the mega trend of increasing release frequencies, so everything is getting faster. I think that's kind of something that we see in all domains. It doesn't matter if you're in the financial domain, even in the automotive industry, they're rolling out critical functionality over the air in a way quicker fashion than they used to do in the past. And my feeling is that this awareness that being quick becomes more and more important for many companies actually leads to more awareness for technical debt issues. I have the feeling that at least the fast digital enterprises today did understand that they need to improve quality to be able to be fast. So I think it's actually pointing in the right direction, not for many old dinosaur companies maybe, but for many new digitally fast companies, that they actually understand that.
Go, you had something.
Yes, just another point that I think that is worth mentioning. because us as research, software engineer researchers, we need to take care about how do you manage the technical debt. You see, the pressure is a key word here. Teams are under pressure, and the situation that when we try to add activities of the technical debt management on the team's routine is another pressure that we are putting on the routine. You see, it's another activity. You now need to prioritize the technical debt. When before we had just that backlog with features, now we have a backlog of features, and now a backlog of technical debt. And how do we prioritize, etc., etc., etc. And then we have to take care to do not create another friction, you see, on the team's routine. And I think that, this is not the most, but one difficult point. Another point is to identify the technical debt, you see, because usually it's easy to identify and to self-admit the technical debt that is creating, that is hurting today. But those technical debt that are hidden on some space that are not important today, but will be in the next 3 months. You see, like Florian said, well, in the future, we don't know the future, but we need to track that technical debt, you see, because today I have to deal with some I sincerely don't know how to handle this at this moment where we have to suggest and motivate the developers, the architects, the team leaders to manage the debt that is not causing or is not hurting today. You see, so how can we arise, you see, the future business impact, you see, for today, so we can look forward and then prioritize today a debt that must be paid. You see, like, for example, architecture debt, etc. So it's a point to work on.
Your speaker had a slide with a crystal ball on it, right? That's what we need. Jan, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the questions around managing technical debt that is brought up is how do you prioritize it in respect with everything else? And I see basically that, first of all, teams have 3 backlogs. They have a feature backlog, they have a defect backlog, and they have a technical debt backlog. I think everyone understands that. And I see companies manage technical debt in 3 different. In companies that are absolutely not enlightened, you have to, as architects, hide technical debt management in feature development. Yeah, so basically the business side requests a feature. You think, I can slip in some architecture refactorings. You calculate how much it would cost, and then you go back to the business and you say, the feature is going to cost this much. And then the business goes like, that much? And you say, yeah, complicated technical story. And then you basically slide in some technical debt. That's one. Second, one of the companies in Software Center had a CTO that was somewhat enlightened and basically gave a fixed budget to every one of the 3 backlogs. So features got 50%, defects got 25%, and architecture refactoring got 25%. So that's the second model that I'm sure some of you have seen. And the third is that you have more of an enlightened team that basically, if the business pressure is very high, prioritizes features a bit more. And when there is a bit of a slack, you basically prioritize technical debt management a little bit more. But you try to even things out over time with a certain investment in technical debt management. And what I think is important is to get companies from the I have to hide the technical debt management into I am explicitly admitting, recognizing that there is technical debt. And I find a way to at least over time make sure that I invest enough into managing that part of the technical debt. I have a lot more thoughts, but I'll stop here for now so that you get to more questions, Caroline.
Thank you. Before I move on to a different altogether, I want to bring up Juan's question again about security. And we're starting to hear in the research literature a little bit about security debt, whether or not that's really technical debt, or we hear about security smells, which are things that are not yet security vulnerabilities but might turn into them. On the ground, in the trenches, so to speak, are organizations thinking about security in terms of technical debt and looking at some aspects of implementing security in terms of technical debt? Is that something that makes sense? Anybody?
So, I mean, very rapidly, if I may, I mean, I have to say yes. I mean, that's an obligation. You know, again, in my line of work, security is a fundamental aspect of for companies. You know, so the answer is yes. The question is, everybody? Well, no. Is it mainstream? Well, no. Again, because of the business pressure, etc. But if the question is security being taken more and more, you know, important? Actually, you know, we in the industry, the terminology of DevOps, you know, some people call it DevSecOps, SecDevOps, DevOpsSec, whatever you want to call it, but actually Sec from security is within the acronym, right, or within the taxonomy. So again, yes. It is important also to note, as per the question, that security, and again, I've been in the industry within security for more than 2 decades, right? As everybody probably in the panel, in one way or the other, meaning that has to do also with identities. You know, identities, data, and application. Those are the 3 layers that we need to consider when you are crafting and designing an application. It's about credentials. And then the auditability of the application, I mean, how can you audit? How auditable is that, you know? And then the assurance part of the world, and then again, credentials and log management, so back and so forth, the storage, etc. So I think that, and probably that's by nature, you know, by my line of work. But yes, we are seeing a lot of DevSecOps, and then the instrumental questions, and that white or blue book that I was mentioning before in one of my interventions about this is the framework how we are building the house in here. We are building a cathedral when we're talking, and again, protecting this cloud generation, so to speak. In the cloud generation, you need to do things in an orchestrated way, or otherwise it will chaotic, and chaos drives into problems. At least that's what history has told us. So in short, yes to the question of security being one angle, one dimension, apart from the features, function, agility, speed, the different models, and yes, but security is becoming part of the conversation, which of course I celebrate and I applaud. So yes, that's my answer. Yeah.
Okay. Robert, I think I saw your hand. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so my experience is that most of the security issues, they are still handled as defects because they are a defect when we release the product, for instance. However, a big area where we have security debt is the infrastructure debt. So we can have really slow security infrastructures creating keys and whatever that causes a lot of pain for the developers when we produce devices or whatever. So there, for sure, you have a lot of technical debt.
Have your hand up?
Yes, I did. 2 quick points that I had. One, very close to Robert, in the software center that I lead, the 16 companies and the 5 universities, where, by the way, Bosch is also a member. What I see is that many embedded systems companies addressed the security issue initially by not having their products connected. If it can't talk to the internet, I can't have any security holes. But that doesn't work anymore. So what I see is that there is an increasing awareness of security, but that, as Robert already indicated, it's as a defect rather than a technical debt issue. The other quality attribute that is not the same but related is safety. And what we do see is that, and we've done some research in that area in case people are interested, Therese looked into this. If I have to safety certify software, I will try everything I can to avoid making changes to the software in order to avoid recertification. So I will basically bolt on all kinds of stuff on the outside in order to not have to recertify. I mean, we see this especially in aeronautics, but also in some of the other spaces. So what we see is that if you look for a place where technical debt gets accumulated very, very quickly, it is in those areas where the cost of certification and recertification are extremely high. And that's where I see that security and safety are often at odds with each other, because safety doesn't want to touch anything, whereas security wants to fix things as the moment that they become aware of a security risk. So I think that that's an interesting balancing point that maybe deserves more attention from the community than what it is receiving today.
So this discussion of security actually leads into my next question, is what are the near future issues and topics related to technical debt management that no one is thinking about yet? What if a researcher out there is looking for a new topic that's going to be timely in the near future, however you define that, what should it be? Go ahead, Jan.
Keep it very short because I talk too much, and that's one of my weaknesses. Come tomorrow to my blog post, to my keynote, because what I will talk about is, I believe, two areas where technical debt is currently not well understood. One is almost all software-intensive systems are becoming more and more data-driven. So they generate lots of data. People want to use that data. How I manage the technical debt around data pipelines, around automated interpretation, around quality assurance of data pipelines, that is a huge issue. And the second one, I haven't looked in detail at the program, but I suspect the word artificial intelligence has been mentioned a few times during the conference already. What we see is that more and more software-intensive systems embed machine learning and deep learning components in them. And what we see is that there is a new set of technical debt challenges that is originated from that, which I think are two areas that the community would really benefit from spending more attention on. And if you want to know more, come to my keynote tomorrow in 22 hours.
Shameless plug for everyone. So I'm sorry. Yeah. I was looking over at the chat, so if you had raised your hand, raise it again. So Ramses, go ahead.
Yeah, well, I want to build, and I'm pretty sure that keynote, Jan's keynote tomorrow is going to be a fantastic, second to none. But let me build something on what he said, and of course he's covering tomorrow, so great. But so artificial intelligence is the overarching discipline. There are 5 sub-disciplines. Let me touch a little bit on machine learning. You know, machine learning on itself has 4 dimensions: supervised, unsupervised, deep learning, reinforcement learning, and deep learning. I'm going to touch on the second one, unsupervised machine learning, and not because I work for a vendor, that I do, and it's an honor, but because I've seen it happening. I'm not an engineer myself. I'm not a technical guy, you know, but when I see what it can be done with unsupervised machine learning, I mean, to my eyes, it looks like magic. And again, I say it with respect because I'm not an engineer myself, but you know, unsupervised machine learning learns by observation rather than supervised machine learning that learns by example. You need to train the algorithm, etc. What I mean is, in technical debt or in application security or in the world of DevSecOps that we're talking, I mean, if you get the help from the algorithm in an unsupervised way, I mean, the algorithm learns by observing patterns, by detecting anomalies. And by detecting anomalies, especially when you are coding, you know, you can guess if it's properly observing the environment and what happened before, etc. I mean, it can tell you, I mean, Ramses, this is wrong, or this is strange. This use of this API or open source code, it never happened before. So I think that I'm pretty sure, I mean, the question was that no one is thinking about. I mean, everybody's thinking about, but the applicability of, specifically in my world, unsupervised machine learning, and I'm pretty sure that Jan will talk tomorrow about, you know, the overarching discipline, artificial intelligence, etc. But I mean, unsupervised machine learning, to my eyes, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it's here to help us, you know, the use of algorithms, like in Industrial Revolution, machines, you know, quote unquote machines, they amplified our capability, they expanded our reach, you know, specifically on application security, and to get rid of technical debt. I'm pretty sure that algorithms can see beyond, you know, they work tirelessly 24/7. You know, the algorithm doesn't need to sleep, or it doesn't require salary increase or something. It doesn't complain. So I think that's pretty cool. If you do it the right way, I mean, helping cyber analysts and helping coders and developers into getting rid of anomalies and technical debt. I think that's an area to grow and a super good investment. Yeah, back to you.
Yep. Florian, go ahead.
So what I see is that with the move of many systems to the cloud, we are actually moving many aspects that used to be in the realm of hardware to the software area. So softwareization, containerization, infrastructure as code. So everything that used to be something that someone did in a data center, like physically in the past, we do in software nowadays. We configure full data centers in software. And this creates a type of software artifact that is often kind of a second-class artifact. So there's the code, and then there are these deployment descriptors, these container configurations, and all these other artifacts that are essentially as important as the code, because if they're wrong, the whole thing doesn't work. But still, they're treated in not with the same awareness for quality as the actual code, and I think that it's going to be a problem in the past if we do not start treating these artifacts with the same care that we do use for the code.
Thanks. Robert, go ahead.
So for me, I also agree that the AI area that we all to know, there is a lot of things we need to do to really understand. I mean, we have the data depth for sure. We have the machine learning model architecture depth that contains architecture as well. Many architecture can do that creates depth the same. We have a full infrastructure when we create models and when we work with data that can contain depth. I would like to touch upon another. Maybe it's the wrong forum. I guess maybe all of you are fully aware of this, but there is one depth that I constantly have to remind my colleagues and my peers and my discussion partners. And that is that when you patch open source components, you also add technical debt, because you need to keep track of and contribute back the patches you make, so to say. And usually this is missed. We talk so much about the other debt, but this one is sometimes missed.
Interesting. Rodrigo, go ahead.
Just to be a little far from the technical side, you see, I think that we have plenty of room to investigate both the behavior, you see, and psychological aspect of the professional who is creating the debt. See, we may have the perfect tool and approach to measure the debt, but if the guy is there and create that, then we have a problem. For example, I was talking with a professional a few weeks ago, and he created a debt, and I was interviewing him, and I asked him, why did you see that debt? And it was verified as a technical debt, etc. Why did you create? And first he said, well, first I didn't know that this would be a debt, and second, I didn't have opportunity to ask other people because he was shy. You see, he was not a person who asks and collaborate and communicate in a proper way. And so we also are living with that turn around. You see, a turn of people going from one company to others, and this creates a lack of, you can say, a lack of responsibility with the code that they create on the last company, and even changing inside big companies, changing the teams. It creates a lack of responsibility. You see, it can create that point. And another point, besides the behavioral, we need to fill the gap between the technical and the business. You see, it is still widely open. we must go beyond the tight deadlines. You see, oh, the problem is a tight deadline. This is a business pressure. But what is behind the business pressure? What is behind the tight deadline? What is causing the tight deadline? You see, what can we do? What approaches can we create? Measures, variables, common language to help both sides to interact and plan together and stop fighting against each other, you see, when working on the same product in the same company. I think that are two main points to go.
Leads very well into my next question. And I know there's a couple comments in the chat about TD awareness, and hopefully we'll get to that. But I want to build on what Rodrigo was just talking about and go into my next question, which is about this bridge between business and tech folks. So it's often said that what makes TD management so hard and so interesting, especially for us researchers, and I know that's why one of the big reasons I'm a TD researcher, I find this fascinating, is that it does require business-oriented and technically oriented folks in the same organization to work together and understand each other. And so I'd like to ask our panelists, is that true? Is that just a sort of a researchy way to look at it? And do you have any examples or stories about that communication gap or times when that gap was bridged when talking about technical debt? And I don't know if anybody, go ahead, Rodrigo, keep going.
Just to follow the last answer, then follow the line, the thought. I think that we have a lot of variables, you see, to work on. When we think about the professional who creates a technical debt, the team are submitted to a lot of forces. We have external forces like competitors, business opportunities, customer expectations, legal, political, ambiental matters, etc., pushing the team, you see. We also have business internal forces like marketing initiatives, salesperson trying to sell things and to deal with unplanned problems, you see. And then we have the management forces who are that are just touching the technical teams, you see, like the product owners trying to make customers happy, etc. So, and it is one time I was talking with an account manager, and he said, Rodrigo, you see, it is very hard to talk with you guys. Every time there is a problem, someone puts some security problem on the table to finish the argumentation. So who knows about what is a security problem, etc. So the business participants do not know about technical matter. We are seen as a black box. So, and on the other side, we have the same problem with technical people who blames when the PO comes and says, well, I need to prioritize something just because the customer said that must be. Well, when we put that feature in production, no one uses that feature, then it is very common also. So I think that the point here is to understand what is the minimum, you see, information that must be shared from the both sides. What do you need to know about the business, the management, the sales, the marketing, to help us as a IT team to plan? And in the other side, how can we expose our technical problems in order to help the business people to make planning? We do not want to every IT people make some MBAs. We need to create a common language and a small set and manageable set of variables to work on. See, so it's just to wrap up.
Thank you. Jan, go ahead.
I think Robert was before me, to be honest, if you forgive me.
Sure, go ahead. I missed Robert's hand. Go ahead, Robert.
Thanks, Jan. I will keep it short anyway. For me, I think the communication is really important, and the trust between business people and technical people. And we have already touched upon it. I think it's quite simple that the business side usually knows the best about this crystal ball, knows a little bit about the plans, about the customers, about the roadmap, and the technical persons. They have the best awareness of what is the system impact of different depth that is in the system. What if we will add a new database? What will happen? So this communication really have to work, because one or the other cannot understand the full impact of the future interest rate of a debt. So I think that's important. Or to state Mary Poppendick, she always mentioned that the technical champion and the business champion should be joined by the hip. Okay, over to you, Jan.
Yeah, go ahead, Jan.
I almost always agree with Robert, but for me, Robert is the incarnation of how I'm thinking about this. For me, it is the software architect who has to understand the business and the technology. It isn't that there is a business side and there is a tech to communicate. Yes, that needs to happen, blah, blah. But there is someone in the middle, or a role in the middle, that can be a complete team, which are architects. Architects have to deeply understand the business and deeply understand the technology, and based on that, make the right technical decisions. And to me, Robert, I'm going to put you on a little pedestal here now. You are one of the incarnations of an architect who actually deeply understands the business and is able to translate it into technology. And what many people, especially on the business side, do not realize, and I hope you're still smiling, Robert, so I'm glad to see that. What many people on the business side do not realize is that it is actually the R&D side of the house that creates the real business strategy for the company. Because very often when we talk about larger and more complex systems, the design decisions that the architects take for the system make certain business strategies impossible and other business strategies very easy to accomplish. Yeah, so just by making the right architectural design decisions, you as an architect are actually creating the real business strategy for the company, which most people don't really like to admit. And I can talk much longer about that, because Ramses is already starting to look agitated because he's not a technical person but a business person, which is okay, Ramses. We don't hold it against you. Yeah, but I mean, I think that that's important to realize, that there actually is a role that has the responsibility for this, and from at least in my mind, and that is the architect.
Yep.
Who would like to go next? I was looking at the chat, so I couldn't see your hands. Does anybody have their hand raised?
Well, actually, let me say something, Carolina, and actually put it on the chat. But yes, I'm not a technical guy, but this is why I literally explicitly said that, to my eyes, the answer to the challenges that we are talking here is something that is so a developer community, and yeah, probably I'm a little romantic in here, but it has to be business focused, process driven, results oriented. So my colleagues here on the panel, we are talking business here at the end of the day, but we are talking technicalities, correct? So business focused, process driven, or procedures driven, if you will. Metrics and indicators are very important, but results oriented. And to your question, Carolina, you were talking about having on the same room, business people and then developers. Yes to that. And let me bring my security soul or DNA in the equation, which is, and then how are we going to be sure that it's robust and solid? Not only answers the business aspects of the world, but also how it has to be secure. Is it difficult? Well, yes, maybe. Is it impossible? No. That's what I'm saying here. Is it difficult? Yes, it is. I mean, the world is, especially in pandemic times, this is crazy, right? However, it's impossible? No way. I mean, if you ask the right questions to the right people at the right time with the right mindset, it will take time, but that's the way to close the gap, and that's what we're talking here. Back to you. Yep.
We have just about 5 more minutes left. There a while back on the chat, if we could scroll up a little bit, there was something I didn't have a chance to get to. It was about awareness. Yes, so Marion asked, and Antonio also chimed in about TD awareness, and where the decision that leads to TD may be intentional or unintentional, but what really matters is how aware the decision makers are of what is technical debt and recognize it, and if they understand the impacts. So does anyone on the, here, let me move back to the panel so I can actually see you raise your hands. Anyone on the panel have some thoughts on TD awareness, how important it is, how you can increase it? Okay, Jan, go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry, I mean, this is not an easy question, but one of the things that has worked really well within Software Center is to basically ask Antonio or Therese to come into that company and give a presentation around technical debt to the technical leadership and some of the business leadership, and that has actually had quite a bit of impact. We actually had a recent case, I think a month, maybe 6 weeks ago, where we went and did exactly that and followed it up with a survey and a few other things, and we saw a remarkable improvement of the awareness of technical debt within that company.
Yeah, I can only agree. I think it's about making these things transparent. I don't think it's so much of a problem of the awareness once you show people what's actually going on. I mean, CQSE is living off that. We have 45 people that only do that, show people their technical debt and make them realize that there's something they need to do about that. And I think once you clearly, and then we come back to the topic before, communicate that, it's actually not so much of a problem raising the awareness.
I agree, both Jan and Florian. So I think the awareness is quite high, at least in my company. It still does not solve the challenge. Should we fix it? Should we fix it and maybe risk that we lose the entire project? And then it doesn't care if we have really good code because the project is closed. So awareness, I would say, is high, but there is so many other challenges that we need to work with.
Thank you. So we just have a couple of minutes left, and you all can see the countdown timer at the top of your screen. I didn't ask you to prepare closing remarks, but is there anything we haven't touched on, anything this audience needs to know? Any final words? Let's put it that way. Yeah, Jan, go ahead.
In the chat and in the conversation, I have the feeling that many feel that technical debt is a huge issue that management and the business side of the house does not understand and should receive a lot more attention than what it is receiving today. And I am absolutely, it's not a, but I think Robert raised just now a very important point. As a business, as development teams, as architects, you have a host of different forces coming your way. And the fact that you sometimes decide to not address technical debt doesn't mean you're not aware, doesn't mean that you're a stupid manager that doesn't get it. That doesn't mean that you're unintelligent and don't understand what you're talking about. No, it basically means that sometimes you have to prioritize other things besides fixing technical debt. I mean, those of you that have looked into the startup space, in startups, this is very obvious. I mean, if you don't, you can accumulate a lot of technical debt in the nail it stage when the company is trying to find the proper match in the market. Because if you don't succeed, your technical debt doesn't matter anyway, because you're dead. Yeah. So I mean, and I think that it's important to realize as a community that engineers, architects, business side of the house, companies live in a world where we need to balance those different forces. It isn't just about maintaining the aesthetically perfect system. And I'm not sure what happened to Rasmus, but I hope it wasn't something he said because he just fell off the chat. I hope it wasn't something I said that made him fall off the chat. But I wanted to stress that really think holistically about the challenges that people in industry are dealing with. It isn't just that they're stupid or unintelligent or they don't get it or whatever. It actually is that there are a lot of different forces need to be balanced, and I think it's important to repeat that.
Thank you so much. So I am going to stop there because I want a few seconds to thank our panelists, to say obrigada, tak, danka, gracias to all of you. Thank you so much. The next paper will be starting momentarily. Thank you.
And obrigado.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.